Astronomers believe there's a giant planet lurking in the outer solar system, and we're going to learn more about it starting right now. Welcome back to Launchpad. I'm Christian Reddy, your friendly neighborhood astronomer. In 2016, astronomers Mike Brown and Konstantin Batygin at Caltech announced evidence of a giant planet in the distant outer solar system. In this video, I'd like to tell you about how they arrived at this claim and where we stand on the hunt for Planet 9. Now, claims of new planets in our solar system are nothing new. In 1906, Percival Lowell believed that there was a giant planet that was disturbing the orbits of Uranus and Neptune. Lowell calculated that the planet must be at least the mass of Jupiter, but perhaps even larger. He spent the last decade of his life searching for Planet X, to no avail. When Clyde Tombaugh discovered Pluto in 1930, people thought that Lowell's giant planet was found. But Pluto wasn't a giant. In fact, it's not even a Mercury-sized planet. Pluto turned out to be a member of a new region of trans-Neptunian objects called the Kuiper belt. As for Lowell's calculations, well, turns out he was wrong. He used the wrong values for the masses of Neptune and Uranus, and when Voyager 2 flew past both planets in the 1980s, their masses were precisely calculated, and the perturbances of their orbits that Lowell discovered went away. Still, that didn't stop astronomers from invoking Planet X on 573 different occasions, only to find that claim disproven on every single attempt. So why are astronomers so convinced that there is a new planet out there? In order to understand that, we need to go back to 2003, when Mike Brown and his colleagues discovered Sedna. It's a 1,000-kilometer wide dwarf planet that orbits far beyond Neptune. But Sedna's orbit isn't just far, it's shaped differently than anything that had been discovered before. Sedna has a close approach to the Sun, or perihelion, of 76 astronomical units, and swings out to an aphelion of 934 astronomical units. This highly eccentric orbit was unlike anything that we've ever discovered in the solar system before, and astronomers immediately wanted to know just what Sedna was doing out there on such a strange orbit. In 2014, Chad Trulio and Scott Shepard discovered that a new object, 2012 VP113, was also on a really eccentric orbit that was not unlike Sedna's. Both of these objects are so distant that they are completely oblivious to the gravity of the inner planets. In other words, they're detached from the rest of the solar system. Soon additional objects were discovered that are a little closer to the Kuiper belt, but are otherwise on very eccentric orbits like the Sednoids. But there was something else really peculiar about these objects. Not only were their orbits eccentric, but they were all pointing in roughly the same direction. Mike Brown and Konstantin Batygin analyzed these orbits, and they discovered that not only were they aligned, but they were also inclined by roughly the same amount with respect to the rest of the solar system. In fact, they even calculated that the chances of these alignments occurring by random chance were something like 0.007%. They concluded that something must be shepherding the orbits of these objects, and that something turns out to be a giant planet about 10 times Earth's mass on a 10,000 to 20,000 year orbit around the Sun. They dubbed this new world Planet 9. But they also realized something else. Over time, Planet 9 could twist up the orbits of inner Kuiper belt objects and fling them into highly eccentric, perpendicular orbits to the rest of the solar system. Sure enough, a population of exactly those types of objects on exactly those types of orbits were discovered just a year prior. And Planet 9 explains something else that has puzzled astronomers for a very long time about our solar system. All of the planets orbit the Sun in roughly the same plane, inclined by about a degree of each other. But the Sun is tilted by about 6 degrees. And that's a significant shift from the plane of the planets. But Planet 9's orbit is highly inclined with respect to the solar system. That means that Planet 9 can act as a kind of a lever arm and gradually tilt the orbits of the planets. In other words, it's not the Sun that's tilted, but the orbits of the planets themselves that have been tilted courtesy of Planet 9. And Planet 9 gives our solar system something that we didn't even realize we were missing until relatively recently. 2,000 planetary systems have been discovered so far, with planets ranging in size from smaller than Mars to larger than Jupiter. But the most common type of planet found to date ranges in size between Earth and Neptune. These are called super-Earths, and we don't seem to have anything like that in our solar system. But now, with Planet 9, we do. And Planet 9 is estimated to be about 10 times Earth's mass, which would put it firmly in the super-Earth category. But why would our super-Earth be so far away from the rest of the other planets? It turns out that if you simulate the early solar system with 4 giant cores, you end up with the 4 giant planets that you have today. But if you simulate 5 giant cores forming in the early solar system, the least massive of these cores gets ejected, while the remaining 4 cores goes on to form the 4 giant planets. The ejected core's growth is stunted, and it only grows to about 10 Earth masses. So Planet 9 explains so much about our solar system. It explains the orbital clustering of distant outer bodies. It explains the apparent tilt of the sun. It even gives our solar system its very own super-Earth. Only one teeny little problem is that we haven't actually found Planet 9 yet. But astronomers are looking for it, and the good news is that they're pretty sure it should be found somewhere near the constellation Orion. The bad news is that it's still an enormous chunk of the sky to have to search through. So astronomers have formed teams in a friendly competition to see who can find Planet 9 first. And in 2018, Scott Shepard and Chad Trulio announced that a new object in the outer solar system has an orbit that fits perfectly into the Planet 9 model. This object is called 2015 TG387, and because it was discovered near Halloween, and because of TG in its name, it's been nicknamed the Goblin. The Goblin is tiny, only 300 kilometers across, and is most likely a frozen chunk of ammonia and methane ice. The Goblin's orbit is the largest and most eccentric of any object of its kind ever discovered. Its perihelion is only 65 AU, so it does come in a little bit closer than Sedna. But it swings out to an aphelion of, get this, 2,300 AU, making this the most distant object of its type ever discovered. And best of all, the Goblin's orbit is exactly where it would be expected to be if it were being shepherded by Planet 9. And it gets even better, because astronomers have found another set of objects in orbits that are anti-aligned with the previous orbits, but they would fit perfectly inside of Planet 9's predicted orbit, allowing it to be held stable by the giant planet. Now, all this makes for some compelling evidence that there is a distant giant planet lurking in the outer solar system. And we're going to learn how astronomers are searching for Planet 9 in our next video. So make sure that you subscribe and ring that notification bell so that you don't miss out when our next video is posted. Until next time, keep watching the skies.